Hello and welcome to Wargamer Online. Today we have something a little bit special, hot off his article on Games Workshop's community site. For Metawatch, we have the master of MSU, Luke. This video is made possible by our patrons. Hey Luke, how you doing, man?
Yeah, not bad. It's good to be on talking.
It's good to have you on. This lockdown's killing us, man. I really need a game against you to kind of sharpen up my skills. Slash destroy any hope of being good at this game, but you know. Well, it's pretty exciting, man. There you are on the Games Workshop community site in the Metawatch article. I love it. That's great, mate. How did this come about?
Yeah, so I got approached by Steve. He wanted to go through Idoneth Deepkin on his Metawatch, and he knows that I've done pretty well with them. And he also wanted to talk about MSU,
Yeah.
because it was approached and talked about on his last article about KO. The guy had a similar thing about using MSU, so he just wanted to try and expand on that.
Right. In the article, we, you talk about coming back into the hobby and prepping for, I think Facehammer was the first one, wasn't it? But before we go there, why did Steve come to you then? Let's just give you credentials here. You have pulled off a few tournaments, and were you playing Idoneth Deepkin for all of those?
Yeah. So I did four events. I used Idoneth for all four.
And
One of them was a doubles where I partnered with Sam, who had the Caradron Overlords.
right, yeah.
I've used Idoneth all the way through.
And has it been MSU all the way through as well, or have you tried different things along the way?
Yeah, it's all been MSU, but I've added and changed like little things like allies and stuff as I've gone along.
Right,
And changed
okay.
a few things, but the majority of the list has mainly been around small units of ills.
That's cool, man. And you did have a big break from the hobby. You were knee deep in fantasy, weren't you, or neck deep in fantasy? Had a bit of a break and came back into Sigmar in 2019. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's my last fantasy event was South Coast GT 2015. It's mentioned in the article.
Right.
Yes, I had good 4.5 years off.
So why Facehammer?
Just quite a few of my friends run Facehammer from when we played in fantasy, so I just thought I'd attend their event
Yeah.
as the first one back, and then so I've prepared for that. Took me about 9-10 months to paint my army and get to a list that I wanted to use.
So the first thing I want to ask really is, why Idoneth Deepkin, and how much did your list evolve as you did the preparation towards the tournament?
So I just picked an army that I like the look of, but there was a couple of armies that I like the look of, and I wanted to really push myself in the hobby side of things and convert in. So I went for Idoneth, and then I like the Nighthawk models, so I thought I'd try and make them work together. It also kind of fits the Idoneth lore. So just kit bashed them together and converted them up a bit, and then spent a lot of time painting the army. Originally, I did start off with using a lot of Thralls and Reavers, but as I played more competitive games with Dan, who helped me practice a lot of my games, it quickly come to a conclusion I needed to add more ills and slowly get rid of all the Thralls and Reavers.
So,
Although I do think the Thralls are good. It's just the ills obviously outclass them so much, especially in the older rules kind of thing.
yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, I play Idoneth Deepkin for the battle reports, and I actually think Thralls are a really good unit, but the Eels are just better. That's the thing, isn't it? You can do a lot of damage with those Thralls, but you can do the same amount of damage with Eels and a lot more mobility. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I think I had quite good success with them at my last event, Sheffield Slaughter. I used 10 Thralls. And they can be really nasty. It's just they can easily be blocked off, but if they are left free reign to run around causing havoc, then they do. Especially when they're supercharged by Volturnos. in round 3.
Oh yeah, well we'll come to that. So one of the things I noticed when I was watching the live streaming of the Sheffield Slaughter event was some of the commentary that was given was very much around you do kind of two things really. One is your lists are sometimes surprising. You come in with something that is off meta, and at the same time your play style is difficult to guess. You know, as they were giving the commentary on the game, they would kind of work out what you were going to do next, and there was a few times you completely surprised them. So, what is it about the list that you put together, you know, and that style of play? What are you looking for when you build an army?
I just want the flexibility to be able to compete against every army, and not necessarily mean it's powerful against every army, but just have the ability to win all my games. Um, I mean, obviously the eel scroll is very powerful, but if it gets hit or gets caught, it does die very quick. So I just like that's why I play that kind of style MSU, because I know if I sacrifice this small unit here to then gain a larger benefit of gaining more points on the objective, or
Hmm.
destroying that dangerous unit that might come back later and take quite a lot of my army out. I just it's just that kind of risk and reward aspect of MSU is 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 really rewarding when it does pay off. But yeah, if you do get caught, I've lost quite a lot of games in practice where if you get pinned down and you can't get out of that situation, it just does die all very very quickly, and you do end up losing the game.
Right,
So
right. And you talk about there in practice, and this is the thing: is you are not showing up to a tournament with a list that's essentially been designed on paper, theoretically works on paper, and then you're just walking into the tournament.
no,
What kind of level of practice are you putting in to get ready for these tournaments?
it's a lot of talking about a list, and then just sticking with a list. Like I had that list for, what was it, nearly 2 years now. Almost. And I just played the same list over and over again. I'd only ever change it slightly, like adding in some Aether Wings or adding in a Fleet Master, like I did at Facehammer, or
Right.
some Heart Renders. Just like tweaking it slightly, maybe making one unit of Eels a unit of 6 to deal with a larger unit, or swapping out some heroes and adding in heroes, but it always stayed that core of trying to have like 12, 13 units that all do something as well. They all interact in the game. They're not just wasted points. But yeah, just always sticking. So I find if I write a list, the game changes so fast. You just got to stick with it, even if all these other armies that come out in the future that will counter your army at a tournament doesn't necessarily mean you will face that army. And if you do face it, you've just got to play. You've just got to play a lot harder than your opponent, and hopefully you get a win out of it.
So, in your mind, how much of a success with an army at the tournament scene is the list, and how much of it is practicing knowing how to play the army well? I don't know. Pick a percentage or something like that.
I'd say 80% experience with that army, and list, yeah, it's about 20%. I mean, you need a good list, but it's proven that all the good players that have experience, they always do well. They're always at the top. They're always there attending the Masters, and
Yeah.
that just proves that their experience in gaming in general is far superior than the list that you use.
I mean, it's fair to say, though, isn't it, that are there some lists that no matter how much practice you give them, you're not going to get in the top of the tournament scene, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think you still have to have. That's why I'd say 20%.
Yeah.
Obviously, is still going to be a list, because you still have to have a list that's competitive. If your list is, say, terrible, or it's not even worth 1%, then yes, your experience still might make you win 3 out of 5 games, just because you play it, because it's an objective based game.
Yeah.
Most lists can still win a game, because that's just how Age of Sigmar is now with scenarios.
Mm.
It
But
was
it's
more lists. I'd say it was more lists back in 8th edition because the whole point of that game, or in Warhammer Fantasy, was to kill all your opponent's army. And if you had a terrible list back then, that just wasn't going to happen, even how well you tied that up.
well, it's certainly one of the things I've learnt from you over the games we've played is to not be precious about losing units if losing that unit gains you an advantage in some way, either on points or holding your opponent up or something like that. Is that what MSU fundamentally is about? Giving you lots of options on the table and not necessarily being precious about any particular core to the army?
Yeah, it's a part of it. There's lots of ways to play an MSU list, and lots of MSU lists will play differently. Like that, the ill list. There's loads of like tactical play that you can see in the article where you can just get gang up on a unit or kill a screen and pile away from the unit. You can still do that in other MSU armies, just not as an effective because in Idoneth you get so many bonuses to charge. You have the mortal wounds in the start of the combat phase, and then you can pile away and use your normal attacks to kill something else. But MSU, just you can like gang up on a big horde unit and making it more difficult for it to pile in and get its full benefit of that horde that's megally power buffed up. You can mitigate a lot of the damage coming back at you if you play it correctly. And like you said, if you what you were just saying about the if there's lots of options of sacrificing units to gain more out of the game.
Yeah, it's like the antithesis, isn't it, of the Death Star list, where it's all about this central core unkillable element. Really, is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, there is some units that is just too difficult to kill, even for the ills like Fire Slayers, Hearthguard block. You do end up probably wasting a lot more resource than it's worth doing. So you're probably just better off tying that up throughout the game and trying to win on somewhere else in the game, depending on the scenario.
One of the questions Steve asked in the article, and it made me smile because I'm always giving you a hard time about this, is you like to run spam lists. And, I always joke with you that your list building essentially is pick the best unit and then put as many of those into the army as possible. But there's more to it than that, isn't there? But you've got to admit, and you do so in the article, it is polarizing. What is it about spam lists for you? What do you, what attracts you to them?
I think as Games Workshop develop in their book writing, it is reducing the spam a bit because a lot of books now have a varied way of playing. Whereas a lot of the books before, like I mentioned in the Idoneth and the Nighthawk, they all kind of do one thing, and that's combat. And if you find the most effective way of doing that phase, then you do kind of end up with the same unit. But I have been recently, on Tabletop Simulator, I have been using some of the more recent armies, and spam is becoming less and less and less because they all are doing different things now. They all buff in a different way in all the different phases and stuff like that. So, I mean, some of the new books there is still spam, like the Seraphon. You can just spam skinks, or you could spam all that kind of stuff, sort of salamanders, and then Lumineth you can spam sentinels. But I don't think they are necessarily the best build in those books. Those newer books. Having a more varied army is probably the better way to go now. But that's why I know the spam, because those books at the end of the day they only really did the one thing. And if you find the most efficient way of doing that, then that's why I ended up with what I ended up with. Especially in the Ninehorn, they have lots of benefits to charging. If you make that 10-inch charge, you get to fight in the charge phase. If you that's why they're really good in MSU, because if you can have 20 units of Ninehorn, you can teleport 10 of them, and then you've got 10 chances of making a 10-inch charge.
Is that the chain gas? Is it the chain gas unit that when you say 20 units of Ninehorn?
Yeah. Well, so the list at the moment is I got some big blocks of chain rasps, and then loads of chain ghasts in twos, and then you drop your army, your heroes, in your chain rasp, and then you drop all your chain ghasts. and you just try and roll as many 10-inch charges as you can, and pin them in their side of the board, and they can't really move because the whole board is just covered by ghosts.
That'd be horrendous. Okay, I'm just sorry about just my microphone drifted across the camera then on its own, so no doubt that will end up on Most Haunted or something YouTube channel at some point, but it just moved on its own without any interference whatsoever as we were talking about Nighthaunt. How terrifying is that? It's been great having you on, mate, and fantastic to catch up. The article is absolutely brilliant. If you haven't seen it already, go along to the Games Workshop community site, check out the Metawatch Army article for MSU. It's a fantastic read, and it really goes into depth as well. One of the things that's on there is they listed your actual army list, which we're going to do as well. So if you pop over to our Patreon page, you'll see Luke's army list available for download. But on top of that, Luke, one of the things that you're offering through our Pantheon patrons is the opportunity to work with you on building a list for your army. Is that right?
Yeah. Whatever way you want your list built in, one-on-one, and we'll get through it.
Cool. So, I mean, say someone comes to you to help with army listing, but they've got an idea of the army they want to do. So they're coming to you and they're saying, I want to work with KO. Can you build a list for me? That's straightforward, yeah?
Yeah, or if you only like specific units, but you want them to be competitive, but they're not necessarily going to win an event, but you want that list to be competitive, then we'll work through it and we'll make it as competitive as possible with the models that you like.
So if for instance, if I've already got a bunch of models, I may not have the full range, or I may only have a small representation of the range, I can also work with you to find out what's best to add to my existing army to get it more competitive, to make it more synergy across the build, etc.
Yeah, and I can definitely help you get through that. So you don't have to necessarily buy the whole range. You can just buy the stuff that you like, and then we're at work together and add in what you do like, and we'll get there with a list, and that's slightly competitive as well.
So, as you said, though, the success is only, and these are your words, 20% of the list and 80% practice. Are you going to work with people to kind of help them understand how to play the army as well? It's not just about building the list; it's giving them tactical advice on how to play it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the game now is scenario-based game. You want to be learning mostly from the GHB, and I'll help you get through that list, compete in every scenario. It might not necessarily be powerful in every scenario, but at least you've got a chance to win each scenario. We'll go through things like that and gaming knowledge and how the movement phase and piling, charge phase, shooting phase, all that kind of stuff, and try and fit in what you want in your list.
That sounds brilliant. I look forward to you working with people. I want to see what comes out of that list build. Obviously, the list would be confidential, would they, to the people that come to you?
Yeah, of course I will. Yeah, I wouldn't share anybody's list.
That's great, man. Listen, I just want to say thanks for your time. I think it's the article's fantastic. Your knowledge is just second to none of the game. I've mentioned numerous times on battle reports, I've learnt most about the game when playing against you. I'm still claiming one victory against you. There's some debate over whether it genuinely was a victory, but I'm claiming the victory. I think you were more playing yourself and I stood moving my models around. So I'm considering that a win. But no, that's great for you to join us today. I really look forward to the end of lockdown and the launch of the second studio as well at some point in the future, where we get to see a lot more of you on battle reports as well, because it's just genius to watch, mate.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be good.
This video is made possible by our patrons. If you want to know more about how to support us, click on the link to the right.